this is the Mama Knows Not a podcast. I had so much fun chatting with Led about his superhero life and comic books for the Roar Literacy podcast that I was like, will you come talk about your dad life with me for this podcast? So welcome back, Led, to chatting with me. I'm excited to hear your story.
All right.
Okay, good. Because I want to know, because your fatherhood journey has inspired so many things for you, when you first found out that you were going to be a dad, do you remember what you felt?
The floor.
Go out from under your feet. Yes.
The world started to spin a little. Pretty much, that's pretty accurate. I wasn't expecting to be a dad at all. I was actually, to tell you the truth, when my ex-wife and I learned that she was pregnant, I was 36 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much given up on the idea of having kids. You know, like it's like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, oh well. You know, I could always, like, adopt a pet. You know. But that was my train of thought back then. And oh wow, really? They're gonna bring the big horns now coming out. So yeah, the noise of New York. So
yeah, exactly.
The ambient sound behind us.
But love it.
To tell you the truth, I mean, like the first the first half hour, it was like pure like nervosa, and it was like all the questions in my head, like it's like I'm gonna be a dad. What kind of dad am I gonna be? Let's see, am I gonna be like an idiot dad? Am I gonna know what to do? Like, you know, like it's a baby. Like, what am I supposed to do with babies? I've never dealt with babies. What am I supposed to do with that? So there's a whole bunch of things that goes on in my head, like what kind of life is he gonna have, and all this. Like, there's so many things, and like that was the first 30 minutes. So you can imagine what the rest of that was like. So right. So yeah, it was actually, to tell you the truth, it was exciting and terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's like you ever go to an amusement park, eat like a ton of hot dogs and nachos, and then someone convinces you to get on a roller coaster? But you get on the roller coaster, there's barely anything to hold on to, and there's a whole bunch of loops, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was the first hour of, you know, me finding out, like, yeah, there's a child coming, and it was pretty much like that, where like it was a stomach full of hot dogs and nachos, and you get on a roller coaster, but nobody tells you that there's nothing to hold on to when the roller coaster's on fire.
That's a good analogy. I like that metaphor.
Oh, I can come up with them all day. I had no idea what I was stepping into, but like it went from the nervous dad to like, I need to know everything about like being a parent. So like a drill sergeant, you know, they have the remember those books, the What to Expect or something like that?
Yeah. Totally.
Okay.
I have one.
So I went through that book like 3 times. And I didn't know that they actually made more. So I went through those like 5 times, to the point where I was actually able to like to remember stuff. So then I was a complete nervous wreck. And then on top of that, dealing with, like dealing with Jake's mom at the time. And I'm like, you know, reading the book and saying, hey, it says that you're supposed to do this. And she's like, shut up, put the book down. And I'm like, so I was always walking around with this book, like trying to. So, you know, first time dad, you know, like riddled with anxiety, complete nervosa, with a book in his hand, you know, trying to read everything in this book as if it's law. And I'm like, it says you're supposed to do this. And like, yeah. So they're like, should I be rubbing your feet at this point? You know, but
she's like, don't touch me.
Yes. It was like, get away from me. You're being weird. So get away. So
that's like, awesome, though.
Get away, you're weird. You know, beat it. Go find something to do. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm reading this book. And I'm like, look, there's 3 more. And she's like, oh, God.
Oh God, get it.
Why?
I feel like,
yeah.
I feel like Yeah, you just kind of, I think, captured a lot of first-time parents.
Yeah, and then it came like the baby proofing the apartment, like and still having like almost a good like 8 or so months before a child even comes, and I'm still sitting there like, should I put the bubble wrap on this wall? What do I do about this? And I'm already preparing ahead of time. It's like so, but that's the way how I usually am. The moment I start thinking about something, it just I need to know how everything works. So. And then I get to the point where I start asking silly questions. Like I'm in like, I'm the dad that's sitting at all the doctor visits, asking all the weird questions. It says in this book, and the doctor's like, what are you doing? Put that book away. And then like,
even the doctor's like, stop.
That book was like the running joke, like before. So yeah, I was, but then it became like exciting. Like throughout that, it was a bunch of emotions, to tell you the truth. So it went from my damn near fainting to the nervosa and anxiety to reading every book about pregnancy to asking every single question, and then all of a sudden you question your mortality, and that's when you start thinking to yourself like, well, what kind of guy am I going to be as a dad? Like, really, like, what am I going to, like this kid's going to grow up and think I'm an idiot. Like, I've been, I don't mind. I love playing video games, and I'm still like, I'm a comic book nerd. I got video games behind me. There's a ton of like collectibles on the other corner that you can't see. So, and I'm the guy that plays Call of Duty with the headset, screaming at kids from wherever, like, and ordering Domino's on a Friday. That's what I do. I still do it. And Jake is amazed that I still do that. And he's like, are you a little old? I was like, I can still beat you. But
your kid's calling you out. That's so funny.
they're like, you sound like my grandpa. And I'm like, you be quiet and just keep playing. So but I went through a lot of those phases where it made me question like where I was going, my direction, and like what am I doing. So there was this whole process where I went from, complete maniac to like I really need to sit and focus about what I want to do with the rest of my life now, because there's going to be somebody paying attention to everything I'm doing. So now I've got to really be on point. So that also made me reevaluate everything. I really had to reevaluate everything I did from that point. It's like, okay, I have a job. My job sucks. And I'm like, and then I started thinking, like, wow, my job sucks. I need a better job. And it's like, wow. And that's really what made me want to change, what I do, change my direction. So I wanted to pursue a career in art. And because this was something I was really good at, life always got in the way. And now I don't have any excuses. Am I really going to do something so like my kid can be proud of me? So the only thing that's stopping me is me. So let me go for it. And that's what I started to do. So yeah. Wow. Like, yeah, if you had met me like back then, you probably would have been like, dude, put that book down. So I
was trying to get my husband to pick up a book.
Oh man,
just to have an idea of what I was going through. That was fun.
I was buried in that thing. It's like seriously, like you'd think that it was like a TV guide or something. I was looking at it like, what's going on? So like, what month is this? And I had to go and like bookmark them, and complete anxiety. I'm happy that part is over with.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you come into your own as a dad? Was there a moment that it just like clicked for you?
No. It's like, no. No. I'm still finding my way. To be honest here, it's like, no. It. But, it's a lot of improvising. And it's a lot of improvising and being very resourceful. And so it's like I kind of like stumbled like drunkenly through it, like like, so it's pretty much like that stumble, like you just there's no roadmap to it at all.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, like after after his mom and I divorced and stuff, and I found myself like, okay, I'm a single dad now, So there's no such thing as going back to normal.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. There was no such thing as going back to normal because, you know, the life I knew that was normal didn't involve a child. You know, the life that I had, like, that was normal was as, happily married with a family. So now this is a completely new normal that I have to adapt to. Mm-hmm. So at that point, whatever way that I had to adapt to being the dad, everything, like, I had to figure it out as I went. Mm-hmm. You know, I really had to. And it took like my parents to help out. It took like close friends to help step in, and so I had I had a really good village around me when raising Jake, and that really helped out a lot. It really did. And so was there a time when things clicked? Still no, but things got easier. Diaper changes got easier, feeding got easier, maneuvering a stroller in a crowded store got easier.
Heard that.
Yeah, loading a child in a car seat by yourself got easier. Mm-hmm. It was so over time, these were things that that I thought that was stressful. I would sit down and I think to myself, wow, I have an opportunity that a lot of people don't really get, mm-hmm. which is to spend this quality time, and just uninterrupted time that I could, that I could spend with Jake at that point. These mm-hmm. are memories I'm not going to get back, because kids, as you know, they're only little for a few blinks, and then before you know it, they're negotiating allowances and trying to bribe you for expensive video games. So, right. Yep. So it's like, I liked you better when you couldn't talk. It's
yes.
Right. So you were cuter when you just dribbled on yourself. It was but I joke around. I say things like that to him. I don't mean it, but
I do.
Oh, jeez. Well, that was for the sake of the podcast, with Lord, but
I said that to somebody else the other day. I was just like, I liked my kid better before he knew words. Knowing what I know now, who cares about the milestones they need to hit?
Right. Now
don't let them talk or walk.
Oh.
So you can, as long as you can avoid it. Oh, man.
And the thing is that when you have a child with special needs, and it's
mm-hmm.
Thing that Jake is, he was diagnosed with autism at 4. So mm-hmm. the speech delay, it's he only had grasp of 3 or 4 words. And the speech therapists were very helpful. The occupational therapist, everyone was super helpful. And mm-hmm. I would do everything I could to ask questions, because just like that book, I was always asking questions what could I do when I'm not here? What could I do in between sessions, things like that. And I remember it was hard because there were times when you could see Jake's frustration when he wants to express himself, and then
mm-hmm.
it's funny because you're wow, man, I really wish you could say what's on your mind. I really wish you can. Fast forward a few years later, Dad, I got a field trip that I want to go on. I'm like, dude, come on. Give me 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes of zen before you jump on me, But I'm grateful. I'm thankful. As crazy as it is, because there was a time when when you don't hear your kid speaking, and then when you finally do, it's a blessing. It's and the curse at the same time, because now the phone call that we had a few minutes before I signed in, and the podcast, it was Dad, do you think you can give me $20? I want to get a gift card for my Nintendo. I was like, what other game do you want now? And there was a whole big negotiation about what he wanted. Yeah. So I go through that at least once or twice a week. So
I can imagine.
They tell it that the money that he could have saved in the last 4 weeks could have bought a bicycle.
Yeah.
And then he was Kids, how many more do I need for an iPad? And I keep forgetting what generation I'm in, So he wasn't even concerned about the bike. He was how many more weeks can I save for an iPad? I was oh, wow. Okay. I'm really late.
50, kid. 50.
Right. Yeah, man.
At least a whole year.
Boy.
I like that you said that parenthood is like improvisation and that you like things still don't click, because I think that is so true. And people are like, oh, you just have to get to this age and it's easier. You just have to get here. But I feel like with every stage, there's different nuances and there's different things to learn. And like, as your kid is growing, you're evolving too. And you have to, it's always like that delicate juggle of, is my kid ready for this? Are they not? You know, and like, I joke about like, because my kid doesn't shut up. He is the perfect blend of me and my husband. My husband is in sales and I'm a creative. I was a theater and journalism major. So we both are very vocal. And as soon as Declan like said, it's just like off, you know, he just like goes. But I can imagine what it's like when your kid isn't hitting those milestones. Like, I wasn't supposed to be able to have kids, so we got Declan genetically tested to see if he was predisposed to anything. My husband's also adopted, so we didn't even know like what could possibly be in his family. And so we were like, well, I was like, I need to plan. If something's going to go, if I'm going to have a special needs kid, I need to mentally prepare myself for what that's going to look like. And as far as we know, he's, you know, maybe he has some kind of processing thing here or there. He's still too young for us to know, but he's as relatively like normal, quote unquote normal, whatever that means, as you can get. So I could imagine having to go through that testing with Declan, getting that diagnosis, or seeing this delay in my child and not knowing what to do. That could be such an emotional experience. What was going through your mind when Jake was diagnosed with autism? How did you respond to that?
Wow. It was, you know, there's a few things. So, like, there's a whole process that goes through it. Because, you know, like, even though his mother and I, we always keep a very good relationship, even though we're not together. So a lot of the evaluations and doctor visits, she was always, you know, a part of as well. So then it also comes down to, you know, you start doing a lot of detective work, you know, like all of a sudden the Scooby-Doo mystery starts to like unfold at that point, because now you're starting to think like, okay, who in the family is autistic? Where did this come from? Or like things like that. You start thinking of all those things, like not really, you know, like really having a clear understanding. You also thinking of like, your mind starts to jump to other things. You like there were times I was really fearful about like, how was the world going to treat him? Like, will he always need care? Will, like, you know, what'll happen to him if I'm not around? It's like, there's all these things that like I started to think of. And then like, there's that fear that starts building. And then, at a moment, like sometimes it led to like, and I wouldn't say dread, that's a little too extreme, but you know, there were times when like, you start to wonder if you'll ever experience things that like watching him go to prom, or like, will he ever get married, or like, you know, will I be able to throw a ball with him, or like teach him how to ride a bike? And I know it sounds outrageous, but as a new parent, like, you know, there's a parent, especially with a newly diagnosed child, a person who knew absolutely nothing about autism. Well, a lot of these questions, they're very natural. And I always, when I talk to people who have a newly diagnosed child, it's like, you know, you're entitled to ask those questions and feel the things that you do, because this is what's going to make you the strong parent that this child needs. So, you know, it's, you know, get ready, that roller coaster that's on fire, we're going to go through a few loops. So it's like, it was a very like emotional, like it takes you from one end of your emotions to the next. And it's like, by the time you're done, like you're mentally exhausted. I don't, you know, I think like a lot of people don't really realize that when it comes to, I say a good portion of my time raising Jake was like emotionally exhausting, because it's you know, it wasn't him that was the cause of it. You know, a lot of it was external. A lot of it were people watching us, like in the street, or like in like people he would interact with. The way how they receive him, the way how they talk to him. You know, like I didn't notice that. I didn't notice until I look back on it, and I'm like, wow, that was a really jerk question to ask.
Yeah.
And some people were just, it could be just somewhat outwardly mean, and it's, and that stuff. It really but you have to save face and not show to be angry and punch somebody in the eye because your kid's watching you. You want to be diplomatic and handle it well, right? So, but no matter how much it's like, wow, I really want to punch you in the teeth. It's like, it's like you sit there and you're like, no, he's on autism and no, I'm not apologizing for his behavior, and I'm not going to do that. That was a pretty emotional thing, going through that because I had no idea what autism is. My only introduction to autism, I've said it in other interviews, was Dustin Hoffman's performance in Rain Man, which really, there's so many variations of autism that,
absolutely.
And it's as I got to understand more about it, but what's crazy is the only familiarity I had with it was just that movie.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe I should watch this movie again. But the more I kept reading and researching, there were other materials, things talking to his therapist, and trying to figure out what's the best thing to do. I guess the more that I learned, the less that fear started to go down, the less the doubt started to go down, the emotional, I don't know what to do with myself. I started to create a plan at that point. The more I started to, So once again, back with the hook in my hand. Once again.
Yeah, because I feel like your son's 12 now, if I recall correctly. So I think that there's been so much change with just how autism is diagnosed and all the different subcategories that autism covers. Everything from certain components of ADHD that we know. OCD. I think in my very ignorant experience in my naivete with autism, I think that more of us would probably be diagnosed with it now if we were born. I do. And I'm not trying to say that to make it more accessible, but I think that we've learned so much in just the last 10, 15 years that there's so many things, so much that goes into it. And it's such an interesting thing because I think so many people have their, experience with it. They might know someone who has autism or whatever.
Right.
But it's so different depending on the person, like you're saying. So in that parameter, how did you move on from there or support him and with his delayed speech and stuff like that? Well,
one thing I did notice though, and this is now we're starting to move into maybe preschool. And that's around the time that he was diagnosed. It was about he was in pre-K. And one of the things that he loved to do was talk about superheroes all the time. Superheroes all day, every day, 24/7. He was the MTV of superheroes. All he wanted to do was superhero this, superhero that. And then not only did he want to talk about superheroes, he wanted to dress up like superheroes. So he was always asking for costumes and stuff. And which was cute because he was the biggest kid in his class. He was always the tallest of all the kids in the classroom. And here he is in the Batman costume. You can't wear the mask, but you can wear the costume to school. Just let him. And but he was very self-directed and but all he wanted to do is talk about talk about superheroes. So the teachers would always when I would talk to the teachers and stuff, and then the parent-teacher conferences, and they're like, "Well, he's always talking about superheroes, and he's not really getting the lessons, and he's not doing this." And and that's when the wheels start turning. What can I do to help him out? And still, none of the Jake Jetpulse stuff was on the radar at the time. None of it. So I was a technical writer and the technical illustrator. I used to make the what do you call those? Those really complicated electronics and the instruction manuals.
Yeah.
That you get frustrated and you throw it against the wall. Yeah, I used to make those. So you're welcome.
Oh, I got words for you, buddy.
Past life, I don't do that anymore. I'm done with that. But yeah, I mean, it's like once my contract was over with that company, I pretty much found myself now. I had a son who needed to learn, like who has a special interest in superheroes. I'm now unemployed because it's like, my contract is done. And I remember going to like the unemployment office here, and everything I do, I sit down and I doodle. I'm always drawing all the time. So I run into somebody who really changed my life, man. Really, I had no idea, like the places and the people where you'll find like things that will inspire you. Yeah. So and this one gentleman, I'll never forget him. And he says to me, he goes, wow, he goes, you should really start your own business. And it's like, you ever like, whenever somebody says something to you so amazingly wild that you have to squint. Yeah. So you have to look at them like, huh? So and that's how I met him. Like, exactly. So, and I was like, what kind of business would I start? I'm like, but thanks, And he was like, well, if you go through the small business program, you don't have to look for work and report here every week. Okay, all right, I'll start my own business then. Okay, no problem. And what kind of business am I going to start? Oh, don't worry, you'll have time. Oh, okay. So, at the same time, I'm trying to help Jake out. I'm trying to teach him. And it was a little frustrating at first because, like, it would just be basic sight words and he just wouldn't get it. He'll just walk away from the table. He'll just do his own thing. And I couldn't get mad at him. I couldn't get mad at him. Like, your first response is, well, you get back here. You get back here and finish this. But it's you can't do that, so he's not going to understand why, because he's just doing his thing. So I'm like, wow, okay. So I got this idea. I was like, all right. I was reading somewhere about art therapy classes and stuff, and they were giving these exercises, and I Googled them, and I found a bunch of them that I thought would be cool. So I just had a big giant bucket of crayons, and I threw it on the table. And I remember, like, my mother was here, and she was screaming, why is all the crayons all over the table? So I said, Jake, let's sit down. You and I are going to draw. And he was like, yeah, draw, cool. So he sits down, and he starts drawing. I'm like, okay, so Jake, draw me a happy picture. What do you think happy looks like? And he would draw me a picture of what he thought happy looked like. Draw me a picture of what you think sad looks like. Okay? What color do you think happy is? What color do you think sad is? Right? And so I started breaking down, like, everything I learned about comic books. I started breaking them down into small little mini lessons, like 20 minutes a day. So, because I figured, hey, this will keep him occupied for a little while. I had no idea what I was doing. Everybody's like, wow, that was really genius. I just want to set the record straight. I had no idea what I was doing. And that's the way how the universe kind of lines itself up, that, these crazy things happen. Right. Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like, okay, we're going to draw a happy picture. We're going to draw a sad picture. What color do you think happy is? What color do you think angry is? What color do you think? And I would say, do you think blue is sad? Do you think gray is sad? Do you think, like, and I would go through all little colors with them. So I made this emotions chart, Hey, I feel. And then they'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I would put on the refrigerator. And so every time I would pick him up and bring him to school. Jake, how did you do today? How did you feel? Right? Did you feel red? Did you feel yellow? Did you feel blue? And he would point to which one he felt, So over time, he started saying, like, Dad, I feel yellow today. Oh, you're happy. Okay, so what happened today? We ate pizza. Okay, great. So I noticed over, like, the course of, like, weeks, of, like, months, that it started to, like, to kick in. And then from there, like, I found another one, this is where the whole Jake Jetpulse thing started, was lesson, draw yourself as a superhero. Me not knowing what in the world I'm doing, right? I sit down, I say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to draw ourselves as superheroes. I'm Super Dad, and you're Super Jake. And he took that name, and he ran with it. And he just started drawing himself as a superhero. I'm Super Jake, and I'm flying, and it's good to beat the bad guys. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And then all of a sudden, it came with this elaborate story. And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. And days later, he started dressing up like the character. So he would find like all of his winter, like his long johns, and he'd find a cape from his old costume, and he'd run around the house and pretend to be Super Jake. And I was like, wow, I mean, at least he has a real cape. I just had like a bath towel, a little jealous. But he actually created his own costume. I'm like, wow, this kid is really cool. So now he's drawing this thing, and it's not like, like a once a week thing. It's now it's an everyday thing. It's every time he sits down, he's drawing himself as a character. And I'm like, Jake, can I see these? And he goes, you can have them. And he would staple them together, and he'd give them to me and stuff like that. And then like I would have all these issues that he would make, that's only for a penny, because he couldn't count as high as, so they were only a penny. And that's how he would write stuff down. And that was I think that was like the cool part, because it's like the more I learned about him playing, the more that I learned about that really helped me, understand like how to help him learn. But it was frustrating before that. It was really frustrating for everyone that was involved in, in helping him learn, the teachers, everyone. Because at first, you get advice from all sorts of different people about like, you have to divert their attention. Me, I just jumped right in and said, hey, so what's so bad about the special interest? It's not as bad as me when it comes to like, like muscle cars and like motorcycles, I have affinity for like, playing with cars and building models. So why not like superheroes? So totally. Yeah.
So when he was diagnosed, like in retrospect, is there something you wish you would have known, or information that you wish was more accessible that would have been helpful to you as a parent?
Oh, wow. That was the start of the website. The website originally started me just showcasing Jake's artwork. And it was actually like I would go to different websites to learn about like autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
And as informative as those websites are, they're also incredibly dry, and it's like very straightforward information that if you read for more than 5 sentences, you'll start to daydream and like, oh, I cannot, oh, there's just too many words. The words start moving on the screen. So I said to myself, now that we're sitting here and doing all this stuff, I wanted to showcase what my life was like as an autistic parent, and then showing some of Jake's artwork while explaining what autism spectrum disorder is. So the first part of the website that I actually created was compilation of everything that I've learned from all the speech therapists as teachers. And, and then I would have them fact check everything to make sure the information that I gathered was correct. And then I put that online along with like photos of him dressed up as his character with his artwork and how that was inspired. And as it went on, I made flashcards to help him learn and things like that. So there was a lot that went into that. It was it was a lot that went into that, like really wanting to learn. But like looking back on everything, I wish that like someone had made something that cool, because I couldn't find anything like that. It would have like I'm a visual person myself, so everything as a creative, I can visualize it. For me to sit down and read, it has to be something I really want to read, or else I'm just not as enthusiastic about it. It's like I can't help it, and so it was very tough. It was like it was really tough to find like information where like a lot of the information was I think it was missing something. It was just a lot of information, and like I really wanted to connect with other families. So that's what I really wanted to do, and it was like that's what I really wanted to find. So looking back on that, I think that's really what I was looking for. So I built the site to nice. Show other parents like who are just with a newly diagnosed child that, hey, you're not alone. There's, even though like you've received this diagnosis, you're gonna wonder, you're gonna have all these crazy questions, but then there's something really awesome that's gonna come out of this, and you just have to ride that fiery roller coaster and find out. So like find out where you're going. like looking back on it, that's what I was looking for. Like, you know, just someone to connect with.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of isolation there. Like, even on my own part, because it's like there's the whole frustrating part about like how people react to him out in public. And sometimes, you know, the reactions are negative, and that causes you to self-isolate sometimes. So it's like, or you feel like a little uncomfortable with taking your child to certain places because of like how he might react to certain sounds, to certain...
Yes.
There were so many things that like I felt like, you know, I kind of like took myself out of the world, you know, and it was like, it gets lonely, you know, as a parent, because it's like you feel like, wow, is this ever going to end? Is there ever going to be a time when he gets it? Is there ever going to be a time when he's going to learn this? At the same time, you feel like you've sacrificed a part of yourself, you know, as noble as it may seem, but you're isolating yourself, and now you have no one to talk to, you know? And it's like, you want somebody to hear you. You want somebody to know that, you know, you're going through something. It's not all, you know, it's stressful for a lot of people who are raising a child with special needs, and that's normal. I mean, it's like, this is an emotional thing. It's the hardest thing. It's a wonderful thing when you see them making these accomplishments, when they finally, when they're doing it. And it's also like at the beginning, it's heartbreaking, because it's like your mind can't help but run and go to like the worst parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I was looking to find, you know, like something I could connect with.
I think that's really good what you brought up too. It's like, you know, in a way, when you get a certain kind of diagnosis, you know, whether it's, you know, an intellectual disability, a physical limitation, or an illness, doesn't really matter. But it's like you're almost like, because you don't know, it's like you're almost grieving what could have been. Do you know?
Exactly.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like a form of grief. And because you don't know what your kid's going to be capable of. You don't know if you're going to make it through the sickness or whatever it is, or you don't know, like, even if it's like a car accident, like you don't know if you're going to walk again, or whatever the situation may be.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like that's such a normal, I hate the word normal. I really do, but I don't know what to substitute it with. But I feel like that's such a human emotion, and just a human reaction. It's not even a response. It's just like innate in our person,
Right.
to go through that and be like, wow, I could have done this, or what if he could never do that, or da-da-da-da. And I think it's great that there's definitely programs out there. Like, what is it? Tim Tebow, he has, an organization, and they throw a prom for special needs kids that, you know, every year kind of thing, so they can feel like superstars and stuff like that. So it's so great that these programs exist now, but I don't think they were around 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and it's like these are things that I was looking for, and it's like, how can I make a change somehow? Like, how could I improve on like what already exists? But like, I just never could connect the dots. So it's when we created the comic books, it was, I wouldn't say it's an accident, you know, it's not what it is. But when I realized he was paying attention to superheroes, when I realized that, it was one of the first things that I wanted to share with his teachers. So I took all of the drawings, and I took my drawings too. And not to like say, oh, I'm better than him, but I went to I showed his teacher, I said, listen, I know that he's really into like the superheroes and stuff. Why don't we just, you know, if like, do you mind if I take some of the work that he has and like make it and turn it into like this superhero, you know, like. And she thought I was completely crazy. It's okay. She thought I was nuts. And I was like, no, really, this will work, I guess, I hope. You know, like, I really had no idea. And fingers crossed behind my back. I guess, I don't know, I'm willing to try anything right now. But I noticed that when he saw a character that looked like him, like, the light went on. Like, what does that word say? Yeah. And then those were the questions. What does that word say? I'm like, that word is jump. Jump. I'm like, can you say that the sentence? I could jump real high because I'm wearing a cape. Okay, fine. Don't care as long as you said it. You know? Can you jump?
Context.
Jump? Like, okay, all right, good, you got
Syntax, yeah.
So I would sit there. Yeah, so I would sit there and I would I have another picture and I'm like, Jake, what does this one say? So, and then I remember he was doing it. He was literally trying his best with until he was able to memorize the basic sight words.
Yeah.
So then I put a little book together for him to see if he could actually read the full sentences. I thought it would be kind of cool because remember the kids, they used to have those books, the Jack and Jane or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's so I decided to do that with his characters and create a book with some simple sentences and stuff. I know I have a bunch of them still laying around. They're little tiny books too.
Yeah.
The very first ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
My first book, C-spot, run, C-spot, jump, C-spot,
yes.
those one. Yeah.
Exactly. And I gave one to him. I said, show this to your teacher, and I want you to read it for her. You know? And he did, you know? And I was picking him up at school, and the kids in his class were like, hi, Jacob's dad, do you have any more of those books? And I'm like, I think I have a couple more. And I would give them to the kids. I'd ask their parents. I said, okay, I can give this to them. And then a week later, the parents came up to me and they were like, do you have any more of those books? I was like, and I had this box sitting in the house with a whole bunch of
$9.99 plus tax.
Yeah. It's shipping and handling, and if you buy two, I'll throw in another. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. So now his classroom has these books, and then a teacher from a classroom across the hall was like, "Hey, do you have any of those books?" And I'm like, "Sure, here's a few." And then the principal came to me, and I thought he was going to say something about it because me and principals, we were in high school before, so it's today the principal wants to talk to you. I'm like, I didn't do anything. So he's like, I'm just making books, man. It's it, just books. So he was like, yeah, I want to give one of these to the superintendent. Do you mind? I was like, no, of course I don't. So now I'm giving these little fun books, with simple sentences and sight words and stuff with Jake all over it. And I remember someone asking me, are you ever going to do another one? I guess I could, and then I do another one. And then I was like, this seems like fun. Maybe I'll do another one and do another one. And then before I knew it, I was like, Jake, what's going on with this story? And then he was like, why, you don't know? He was like, no, I have no idea. And I would put the voice recorder on the table and he would tell me all about his characters. And it was such an amazing universe to the point where I sat there and I was like, oh my God, this was in your head all along. It was fantastic. I mean, this is something I would watch on a Saturday morning. And I'm like, wow. And then he replied to me, he's like, how come you didn't know it? I'm like, 'cause I'm not a mind reader. It's I don't know. We don't have the same brain.
Wow.
So, but he expected me to know it as if and that was the crazy part about it. So I started, writing a script, putting it all together. And the more I wanted him to learn, the more lessons I threw into it, the more I just kept sneaking things in. And that's what I did. So I made the reading comprehension workbook. So the mini comics were just, okay, let's see how well you read it. This is my way of testing them. So
that's awesome.
That's exactly how I did it. So everything that I did, what the books are, is everything that I did with him, on our own. Before I even thought about putting the book together, I would just make those, I would just print them out. I would just draw them on the computer, print them out, give them to Jake. And after he was finished reading them, I was like, okay, so what happened in this scene? That's exactly how that happened.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
But I think it's been so incredible that you kind of leaned into what he was attached to make it work for his benefit and the benefit of like school and your household and everybody's sanity, you know, like you made it work for everyone.
I figured I had nothing to lose. I really, to tell you the truth, I pretty much ran out of options like every other way. I really did. I was like, I had no idea what I was going to do. And like, there's that old saying, if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I did. I just sat down and just started talking about superheroes with them. I'm like, instead of stopping you, might as well enjoy this before you grow out of it.
Yeah, twist your arm, right?
Right. Yeah. So, like, while we're still talking about this, might as well just, have fun.
Yeah, make it work.
And before I knew it, that was that last hurrah was like, okay, let's talk about superheroes. Let's finally have that conversation. And nice. That's what it was. So I pretty much, like, I wouldn't say I gave up, but I ran out of, like, I was pretty much all out of suggestions. Mm-hmm. I was already, like, at my wit's end. I'm like, where do I go from here?
Yeah. Well, I think I like the looking at it from a term, just from a third party outside perspective. It's like you gave in to what your child was telling you. You know what I mean? Like, I look at it too, like in schools all the time, because I feel like our education system, and this is a tangent and a different topic for a different day, but
yeah,
you're supposed to like fit into this, like you're supposed to conform to like whatever the bell curve is, but most of us aren't really on that bell curve. So many of us learn in multiple ways, and you're kind of forced to conform. Yeah, and I think that you did the opposite for your kid. Was you found what inspired him, and then he was learning, Yeah. My kid goes to a Montessori school, and I picked it because I wanted him to have some certain principles that, like, I don't think we get in public schools, mm-hmm. which is, leadership and individualism and, all that kind of stuff. And so because every child learns differently. And I think so for me, like what I hear you say is like, you just leaned in to what your son needed. And maybe it was the last, option. You had no other choice, but you got there. I don't think as a parent, I would be able to identify and do that, so I think it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. That's the beauty of being a geek, because like you find the weirdest things. Like, I have Star Trek to thank for that one. I didn't. No, come on. I wasn't thinking. That was not on my radar. Like, embrace the crazy. Just go for it. Just. I wasn't thinking that. It's like I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing, and I remember like he was with his mom for the weekend, and I was sitting at home, and I had just ordered a pizza. And I'm sitting there, like, literally stuffing slices down my face, watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm dead serious. And there's an episode which is very interesting, because Patrick Stewart is stranded on this planet with this guy, with this alien, and all he could say is like a small handful of words. And I forgot the name of the episode, and I know, like, I'm going to have my geek card revoked because I don't remember the name of the episode and what season it happened.
You're fine.
But it's it's amazing, because all it is that like this alien species only speaks in phrases. So by the end of the episode, right? So at the end of the episode, Patrick Stewart's able to communicate with him and like have a whole peaceful, union with this species, because he learned how to speak their phrases. I'm dead serious. I'm like, that's where I was. So imagine me. I'm sitting there like munching on a slice, going, oh, like pointing at the screen.
Speak his phrases. Speak his language.
Speak his language. Exactly.
Nice.
So it's like, so why, instead of me like beating my head across a brick wall, why don't I just, like ask him, like, who will win in a fight? Or let me start asking him math questions, or like, or certain things like with superheroes. So, which I found kind of weird, because I would say, Jake, what's 2 + 2? And he would look at me, and he would start counting, like on his fingers and stuff.
To 10.
But the moment, 11,
Exactly.
But
like it does.
He would make up numbers. No, I'm just kidding. He wouldn't do that. But he would get stumped when I asked him, like, Jake, was 3 + 2, right?
Yeah.
And then again, when like I noticed he would answer them faster, right? If I said, if Batman, Robin, and Batgirl fought the Penguin, you know, like fought the Penguin and like the Riddler. Like, how many people are in the fight? You know? And he'd be like, right. And he'd be like, 5. And I'm like, how come you couldn't answer the 3 plus 2?
Right.
You know? But he
speaking his
immediately
language.
Right. And then I sat there, I was like, wait, what? I was like, hold on, so let me try this again. And I was like, okay, I've got to try this again. You know? So I said, if Superman picks up 2 cars and he drops one, how many is he holding? He's like, he's just holding one, Dad.
Duh.
Right. And I'm like, but if I ask him, hey, was 2 minus 1, you know? He's like, wait. He's like, you carry the 3 and then you cross it. But you know, it's
times it by 4.
Right. He's like, the answer is 9. You know? I'm like, no. No, it's not. But I did notice, all jokes aside, that I did notice that when I actually used comic references, like, you know, references with comic books or science fiction, like Jake answered the questions faster.
So crazy.
And I was like, wow, this is exactly what I need to be doing. This is like, I need to like, so now when it came to his homework every night, right, I would have to rephrase all the questions on like his assignments to like superhero stuff.
Ah, wow. And then he would get the answers.
Right.
Nice.
But the hard part was like when he actually had to take a test and he actually had to read whatever the teacher provided. So it was like I had to go through the lesson like 2-3 more times. So I would do it the fun way and then I would do it the boring way, or I'd give him the choice. You know, do you want to do it the boring way first, or do you want to do it? You know, I would reinforce it with the exciting stuff so that he would actually get it.
Yeah, that's pretty. But like again, you picked up on it. You know what I mean? Like I joke because my kid, because he makes up numbers all the time. He does. Like 11-teen is a real thing in our house, just so you know. Like, I mean, he's only 5, but still, I'm like, you know that's not a number. Yes, it is, Mommy. I'm like, okay, kid, whatever.
Well,
but
for a while, 2014 was like, you know, wasn't just a year. It was amazing because like the teens never ended. He would get up to 19 and then be 20-teen. Yeah, 21 teen.
22 teen. Yeah, my kid's like, how do you count to 40? And I'm like, well, like this. And he's like, okay, whatever, lady. But if you're reflecting back, what advice would you give yourself? Or you could put it like, what advice would you give a parent who just found out their kid had a diagnosis of autism?
Well, with that is, you know, breathe, ask a lot of questions, you know, ask a lot of questions. Do not be afraid to ask questions, no matter how absurd they might be, no matter how you think somebody might look at you for asking those questions. Like, you're entitled. You have, like, you owe it to yourself, you know, to ask those questions, because you're going to find your stronger self, the more resilient self on the other side of those questions. You know, gather all the information that you can. And that's another thing that I did, was to, like, you know, even if you have like the most wildest Google search, you know, like, hunt those answers down, find out like what's the best way. And also too is to like, don't leave the support with just a therapist. Do everything that you can as a parent, you know, and make it fun. Like, make it exciting. There are certain things there to help develop small, you know, like the fine and gross motor skills. There are a lot of things that you can do to make it fun. A lot of like sensory skills that I learned, like arts and crafts things that you could do, homemade finger paint, homemade slime, make a mess. It's all good. You know, these are things that were fun and exciting. You don't have to be like super creative. You don't have to paint like Michelangelo to do it. But it just, as long as you're having fun, and it also gives you the opportunity to engage, you know, your child and ask questions and like how they're feeling. And then this is how like you become like their support system. So if anything that happens, you won't have to pick and prod and, you know, like try to like to pull the answers out of them. They'll come to you, you know, most insane questions and things. But like for a parent of a newly diagnosed child, it's scary. but like I would say, like before you find yourself self isolating, before you start apologizing for your child's actions or whatever. My advice is find other parents who are, and associate yourself with, with others who have gone through the same thing or a similar path as you. Because, having that kind of support system, like, makes your, like, brings, and I too don't like the word, like, normal, but it does bring balance to your world,
Ooh, balance is a good one.
Yeah. It does bring us like some balance, and it gives it like it gives it meaning. So you really feel like now you have somebody who understands, who understands. They know the outburst tantrums, the what, like, however, like, like the odd looks, the strange questions, the that weird feeling, like, like, why is everybody staring at my kid? Like, no, these are people who are, who are unapologetic, who, are raising their children as good parents, teaching the kids values. The only difference is between Jake and another child is that, sometimes he draws out the, outside the lines, he'll figure out the answer, but he'll take a completely different route to get there.
Yeah.
It's, these are the things that make him unique. These are the things that make him who he is. If he didn't have that, he'd be a completely different child. Would I be doing the things that I'm doing now? Would I be as involved?
Right.
There's so many things to think of. But yeah, my biggest advice is to, connect with other autism parents and things. And that's the reason why, like, I started looking for other places that involve, like, children with autism, as like movie theaters where they have, like, sensory nights. Okay, so like you and your child can actually sit and watch the movie. In the now there are, like, sensory friendly events at most places, from Sesame Place to, like, the zoo to, like, so many different things. And it's like, to get yourself involved with those things, to, like, just, you're not going to miss out on, like, any of those special moments. That's, like, those fears. And when you realize that as you're experiencing that with them, and you see that light in their eyes still, it's like, it's wonderful. And looking back on it, that's what I missed.
Yeah.
Because it was different. I mean, I didn't start meeting other parents and interacting with them until Jake was maybe 7, 6 or 7 years old. Right.
Yeah. I think that parenthood can be isolating in general, but then if you have a child who has special needs or neurodiverse or physically limited, it just creates a whole other layer of lack of opportunities. I think we've gotten a lot better at being more inclusive. Like, for example, Legoland in Florida is becoming more autism friendly. So they're going to have, like, signs and more, like, ride appropriate things, and they're changing certain stuff in all their parks, not just the one in Florida, but all of them. And then to be more adaptable for differently abled individuals, like, across the board. So I think that's, like, super helpful, but this is just stuff that's happening now. And I guess maybe it's because there's more knowledge around it. Maybe there's been more studies to kind of show the direction we need to go or ways to be more inclusive. But so I think that I think it's just, like, hard sometimes, though, like, to find people who you can relate to, like, in general, and then adding that layer of a neurodivergent child. It's just like, who's going to understand this kid without being judgmental? There's a lot of judgmental people out there.
Exactly. You're going to they're going to be the one with the silly comments. It's and I remember, like, dealing with a lot of them. I remember, like, Jake was always a large child, always, and he was always like the tallest kid from, like, pre-K to maybe, like, 3rd, 4th grade. He was always the tallest kid. Now finally he's catching up with the other, or the other kids are catching up with him, but it's but I mean, I've heard some really snarky things like, "What's wrong with them? Why can't he speak?" You know. And I'm like, really? I mean, you can speak, and that's what you thought of saying? And I mean, I'm the rude one. I'm like, really? Seriously, that's what you want to start with? You know?
Someone needs to revoke that privilege of your words right now.
Right.
Stop.
And once again, like the ceremonial squint when they say that, and you, like, for real, like, that's where we're going, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then they kind of realized, you know, like, you know, insert foot in mouth, you know? And
I do that all the time.
Like, you know, like, yeah, there's first the squint, like, what? You know, and then there's the squint and the nod, meaning there's really no help for you. Like, no, we're not doing this. You know, so it's, you know, the communicating, like, no, I'm not talking to you. It can be tough, but the moment that you step out and, like, you know, you start, like, you know, like finding these, you know, like finding these, like, these special events and things, and there's a lot of organizations out there that I'm not going to say I discovered, but, like, you know, that were there that I stumbled upon, like, wow,
right?
You know, there's a lot of really cool organizations that host like get-togethers and great events and things like that are really helpful, and people that I've met are just very, you know, like, amazing. They're absolutely awesome, and they've all been very good with, you know, with Jake, and really helpful to provide information. So, for, you know, like that's always been my message for parents, is to, like, to really get out there, and, like, 'cause you'll learn as you go along. There's a lot of things that you'll learn. Everybody's path is a little different, so there's like programs and services that I didn't even know existed until I was talking to another parent, and I'm like, wait a minute, I had no idea. All of this has been very helpful, but you can't do that if you're just, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's not like, sure, things are going to change, but it doesn't mean they're not going to happen.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. Like, talking to people can really help you, you know, find the right resources, get in the right place, like, connect with other people, understand, like, what they're doing that maybe worked for them that you could try to implement. Like, I think sharing your story is really important, because I think sometimes we're so concerned with our child fitting in.
Right.
But maybe making things fit for them is the better, you know, approach to it. You know what I mean? Like, you're taking something that I just think that's super smart. Like, I don't, as a parent, I don't think I would know to do that for my kid. Like, meeting him and making what he loves the centerpiece, and then building from there the knowledge that he needs, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's so smart.